Off the bat, there's no hiding from the fact that we've had a very horrible July, I think. Not just the data we've seen coming up to this, but also today's data. And I think we have to remember that a lot of the wave of policy announcements that we've seen have only come through maybe about the third or the fourth week of July. So really, this data today that we got today doesn't really reflect the easing measures that are coming through. Now, going forward, would they have to put in more stimulus? I think yes. And I think the lessons from the last 2 months is that policy delay, markets are essentially seeing it as policy inaction. And in a crisis such as this, which is not really, you can't really call it a consumption crisis or investment crisis, it's really a confidence crisis. And the best way to tackle a confidence crisis is to be very quick on your stimulus.
I mean, can you really say that there hasn't been enough action? I mean, they've put in hundreds of policy measures.
Yeah, I think that is sort of the odd thing that we're kind of grappling with. They've put in quite a big range of policy measures, but if you look at some of these measures, they have been very targeted at certain segments of the economy. So really, the move towards stimulus has been more targeted, more specific. They've very clearly wanted to target the big ticket items in terms of consumption. They very clearly wanted to lift up the property sector, for instance. But is that really enough to lift consumer sentiment, business sentiment? I really don't think that they've been doing enough in that front.
Louise, I'm frantically looking for this youth unemployment number just in case it was a bit of an afterthought, but they're clearly not publishing it. Sometimes with being a China watcher, it's less about what they do say and more about what they don't say.
Exactly.
How do you read into the fact that they haven't published this number, given that it has been at a record high? Yes, we know that there are some seasonal factors in the July-August period because, of course, of those 10 million or so students being pumped out of the universities. They are looking for jobs. It is the summer holidays. We'll give them a bit of a break. But, you know, in terms of the social contract and how that threatens that.
Yeah, I mean, we've already said that the youth unemployment problem is not really an economic problem. It's more of a social problem. And I think given the economic overhangs that the government is trying to grapple with, this is really one less problem that they want to be able to deal with. Obviously, there are seasonalities with regards to youth unemployment. So if they did publish the number today, it's likely to be much higher than what it was before.
You'd say it's not as much as an economic problem, but of course it feeds into the retail sales, because if you had a job, you're more inclined to spend your money. Also the credit demand, because if you have a 16 to 24-year-old in your household, you're more likely to keep the money under the mattress and save it for when things improve than to go out and spend it, of course, if they're going to be sort of a drag, so to speak, on the family income.
Exactly. And if you look at some of the studies that we've seen, 16 to 24 is the prime age for really spending some of these discretionary items that would lift the economy. So, but I mean, to take 2 steps back, right, the consumption-driven story of China's recovery is pretty much over. And I think if you look into the 2 quarters ahead, the government is very much focused on lifting the industry production, lifting some of these business sentiment. So really, I think that pivot is going to come into play. You're right, there is obviously that's something that they will have to grapple with further down the road.